Hey everybody, welcome to Mike's Beer Blog. Today we're going to be focusing on one particular whiskey. A lot of times on this episode, especially as of recently, I've been posting more expensive stuff to try to, so that people can look into new vistas and broaden their horizons on what's good and what's not. That way I can give them a flavor profile, tasting notes that, oh, I might be interested in that. I like this kind of flavor. I like this kind of flavor. Maybe that's something I'd enjoy. But at the end of the day, the struggle is real. And a lot of us aren't looking to spend $14 on a bottle of beer when we can buy a bottle of whiskey for the same price. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Check out Very Old Barton. This is an 86 proof Kentucky straight bourbon. So, apparently the history of this, or a brief history of this, it had issues getting sold or getting shipped places. And it actually has a bit of a history of, I won't say wrongful campaign, but, well, there are terms like straight bourbon and bottled and bond and things like that for a reason. And at one point, this called itself a 6-year aged bourbon. And of course, it's called Very Old Barton, which 6 years isn't that old for, anything. Maybe for things that aren't typically barrel aged or aren't barrel aged for that long. 6 years can be a lot, but that's by no means very old in terms of any kind of spirit, except for probably beer. Most beer is going to be aged for a year at most, a year and a half, and of course it can be aged in the bottle. Same thing with wine. So this Very Old Barton is just using the term very old because it sounds cool. Same thing with old granddad, or just anything like that. If you can put terms in there that fire synapses that make something sound cool, then yeah. So at some point they said this was aged for 6 years, which it probably was because you can't lie on an age statement. And eventually they took the 6 years off, and it was just a number 6 on there. It's a random number 6. And at that point, it probably wasn't aged for 6 years anymore. And eventually they got rid of that, and now we have the lid right here. Let me cap it so I don't pour whiskey all over my computer. Now it says 86 proof, where the 6 used to be. That's where the thing, like in terms of marketing, like things like very old or crafted, like things I'm seeing on this bottle, things that people utilize, these are all just marketing terms, and there isn't really a regulation on that. So if you see something called very old or granddads or whatever, you can probably just ignore that because it probably doesn't matter. Bottle and bond means something. This one is still called a Kentucky straight bourbon, meaning it is at least 51% corn, and it's been aged in a barrel for a minimum of 4 years. So we know that this is at least 4 years old. And this is where, for me, if it's not a straight bourbon, I'm probably not buying it, because that's when you get to where, like, if it doesn't say straight bourbon, like if you pick up Kentucky Deluxe or something like that, it's going to say, like, blended whiskey. Like, okay, what's it blended with? Vodka? Because, yeah, food coloring. Because at that point, like, they're under no real obligation to tell you what's in it. And you can look it up, but, if the campaign's smart, they're going to have all that relatively well hidden. I've looked up, you look up right now, what's in Southern Comfort, which, by the way, isn't a whiskey. It's a liqueur. But you look up what's in Southern Comfort, it's like pomegranates and apricots and a bunch of other stuff, and just that's it. They're under no obligation to tell you. As long as it follows certain legal statutes, then that's fine. But y'all have heard me talk about the law long enough. Let's get into it. Now, just all the things I said about this, just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's bad. I've actually had this already, and I think I prefer this over Evan Williams, which has been my go-to. And I stopped drinking Evan Williams, or I stopped drinking Ezra Brooks for Evan Williams. And all three of these follow the same price range. This is, I got the big bottle, which is $22 for a handle. And Evan Williams is the same price-ish, 22 something, $23, depending on where you are. Maybe someplace it's 25, but it's still a good price. And a regular bottle, regular size bottles, I want to say 12 to $14. So yeah, this is a good budget bourbon. And like I said, if it says that straight bourbon on it, it's probably going to be a decent whiskey. At the very least, you're paying for a barrel-aged whiskey, where if it says it's a whiskey blend and doesn't have an age statement, once again, what's it blended with? Vodka, water, I mean, obviously it's blended with water because it has to be bottled at a certain proof. But how did they get to that proof? Did they use vodka or did they use whiskey? So, let's get the nose on this. A little bit of acetone on the nose, not much. Prominent barrel notes, barrel tannin. Some caramel. And you get the corn off of it as well as the barley. Here's to you. Decent cereal grain notes. Reminds me of bran flakes a little bit. Some caramel on the aftertaste. A little bit of sweetness. Not overly complex. A little bit of a burnt toast kind of note on there. Some decent whole wheat. Follows into the sweetness of the corn. A little bit of caramel. Not a lot of evolution. I've gotten longer evolutions out of beer. But honestly, this is a decent budget bourbon. For $22, you can't beat it. But today's episode's going to be a little short. I'm just going to talk to you about that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it informed you. And I hope that next time your local liquor store, if it's out of Ezra Brooks, Evan Williams, or Jim Beam, you give a very old Barton a chance. Because honestly, I think you'll like it just as much as the three I just mentioned. Personally, I don't even buy Jim Beam anymore. I'd rather buy Evan Williams or Ezra Brooks. It saves me $5, and I think the flavors are a little bit better. But everyone's different. With that being said, guys, spirits up.